This is the Devil's Guide to Ghost Hunting. Now you know shit is fucked up if a character such as myself is writing something like this. Yes, you know Armageddon is upon us all now with this addition to my volumes of magic and lore. Considering the recent circumstances, however, you best be damn skippy. In fact, I should have written this a long time ago. Between the spirits of zealot Christians and pagans alike all trying to take shots at me, this should have been the first book I wrote. This compendium I shall leave open for both exorcists and demonologists. Every proper volume of legend and lore begins with an preface to the origin of the topic and short historical recount that leads up to today and all this jazz. The art and craft of spiritual warfare and demon hunting actually began with the 7 angels of the rebellion in heaven. After being cast down to earth for their transgressions, they learned that the cause behind the strife that lead to the rebellious emotions was spiritual in origin. They set themselves on a course to find that which was responsible, only to find that God was 5 steps ahead of them. In fact, the purpose behind the principalities were originally to identify the issue of a rebellion by pinpointing exactly from where within creation this taint had come from. God had known that the problem had come from within creation along its timeline, but was not clear on the details and wanted a complete understanding and all parties responsible to be accounted for. He was suspicious from the beginning because he had designed angels to be sinless in nature and especially unable to raise their hand against their own creator. So the principalities were designed, without revealing this agenda, to map out the very fundamental fabrics of creation to pinpoint this source, which turned out to be spiritual in nature and is what led to Satan being cast into the serpent form within the Garden of Eden. But oh, Satan, that crafty deceiver, was only a distraction to the real evil being worked within the background. The true demons were working on his emotions and luring him towards outbursts of frustration. However, God knew of this and had things already in motion. When he cast the rebellious angels to their dominions until Judgment Day, he non-specifically gave them the means to hunt these perpetrators down as the first demon hunters. They had the drive and the ambition, and as far as I can tell, that is what they had been doing until the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. As it seems, heaven is open to those who wish to battle against God's adversaries and have placed on earth a plethora of tools that can aid someone in doing so. Many different cultures provide a variety of religious skills and arts, from voodoo to Hindu Vedic mantras. There are techniques and skills that one can acquire to assist in a person's endeavors to hunt the spirits. One must remember though that there are many different types of spirits and they each have their reason for being where and what they are. The Vedic mantras and the Tibetan arts of chakra healing can be used to heal spiritual damage and absolve spirits who are withheld here because of issues blocking them from resting in peace. Rituals of exorcism vary from a more spiritual laying on of hands by a clairvoyant exorcist, taking the entity into his or her own body and then expelling it, to the formal procedure outlined in the Catholic Ritual Romanum, Gyli 89. In order to fully understand the goals of an exorcism, it becomes crucial that one understand actual procedure. Vincentius von Berg's famous exorcism manual, Enchiridion, supplied a list of tests to determine whether the possessing spirit were good or evil. The spirit was said to be wicked if it, Romans 182, fled at the sign of the cross, holy water, the name of Jesus, etc. said anything against Catholic faith, excited the mind of the possessed to pride, vainglory, despair, etc. refused to discuss the possession with a priest, appeared with a loathsome or dejected appearance, or departed leaving a stench, noise, frightfulness, or injury, approached mildly, but afterward left behind grief, desolation, disturbance of soul and clouds of the mind. If the exorcist felt confident that the person was truly possessed, the next step was to conduct an exorcism. Therefore, it became imperative that the exorcist determine how the evil spirit entered into the afflicted's body. There were only 2 ways in which a person can be possessed: the permission of God for the demon to enter the body, or a witch's incantations inducing the demons to take possession. Even if the exorcist suspected the possession was a witch's doing, he was forbidden to question the name of the suspect, for doing so would be obtaining help from the devil. The Sorbonne in 1620 proclaimed that the testimony of demons could never be accepted. Demons always lied, even under the influence of an exorcism. If after all of these tests, the exorcist believed that the evidence was insufficient to reach a conclusion, he would perform a general exorcism. When the exorcist was finally convinced of an actual possession, he would ask the devil a series of questions. The most important task was naming the demons torturing the victim. In so doing, the exorcist was able to have control over him, according to a primitive animistic theory. In addition, the knowledge of the demons could help in treatment, and the exorcist was allowed to specially tailor the exorcism to cure a victim of a particular demon. Other questions included how many devils were possessing the sufferer, how long the devil planned on staying, and how it entered the body. These questions as part of the exorcism occurred between prayers. Finally, the practice of exorcisms was not to be taken lightly. Certain safeguards were made, such as the presence of witnesses, especially concerning women demonics, and warning existed to caution the exorcist from saying or doing anything that may provoke obscene thoughts. The exorcist must also be keenly aware that they are placing himself in great danger. He must be prepared to have his entire life bared by the paranormal knowledge of the devil. Guile 89. While no two exorcisms are exactly alike, they tend to unfold in similar stages. 1. The presence. The exorcist and his assistants become aware of an alien feeling or entity. 2. Pretense. Attempts by the evil spirit to appear and act as the victim, to be seen as one and the same person. The exorcist's first job is to break this pretense and find out who the demon really is. Naming the demon is the most important first step. 3. Breakpoint. The moment where the demon's pretense finally collapses, a scene of extreme panic and confusions accompanied by a crescendo of abuse, horrible sights, noises and smells. The demon begins to speak of the possessed victim in the third person instead of as itself. 4. The voice. Also a sign of the breakpoint, the voice is inordinately disturbing and humanly distressing babel. The demon's voices must be silenced for the exorcism to proceed. 5. The clash. As the voice dies out, there is a tremendous pressure, both spiritual and physical. The demon has collided with the will of the kingdom. The exorcist, locked in battle with the demon, urges the entity to reveal more information about itself as the exorcist's holy will begins to dominate. As mentioned above, there is a direct link between the entity and place, as each spirit wants a place to be. For such spirits, habitation of a living victim is preferable to hell. 6. Expulsion. In a supreme triumph of God's will, the spirit leaves in the name of Jesus, and the victim is reclaimed. All present feel the presence dissipating, sometimes with receding noises or voices. The victim may remember the ordeal or may have no idea what has happened. For the first part of this I shall go into some details pertaining to buildings or houses that are haunted, as they come in different types. The first I shall discuss are houses or buildings that are actually haunted by spirits. These places, for whatever reason, have become an object the spirit has attached itself to. Within the spiritual realm, the houses take on a different texture, so to speak, and become refuge for others. So haunted houses are rarely haunted by just one spirit. Within the spiritual realm is a type of elemental type force called the ethereal winds. It is dangerous and everywhere you turn. Basically defined, once the spirit is free of its corporeal form, it is without a physical husk and a mass of concentrated sentient energy. The main hazard while in this state is the particles of light that surrounds us. While we have bodies, we are protected from the effects of light, but once that dies, the various rays of light pass through this spiritual energy, slowly poking holes and taking small pieces with it when they do. Eventually, if exposed for too long to the ethereal winds, then a spirit will lose its ability to maintain composure and drift apart, where its energy will become threaded back into the rays of light, which takes at least 1,000 years to be capable of reforming into a sentient being again. Houses sometimes become havens from the ethereal winds. I'm not sure how or why, but they provide a spiritual refuge from these things. I also know that the spirits long for quiet, abandoned places not often tread by the living because of their fragile, weakened state. When people live within the houses they occupy, the constant movement and disturbance of energy disrupts their ability to maintain composure, which upsets them and leads to most haunting events. You could try to convince the spirits residing there to move to another location, but that's highly doubtful, considering that they aren't choices for them to select from and mostly stumble into the ones they find. There is a way to expel them from the house by banishment into the realm of Exodus, which is a region in hell that is for the lost and blasphemous souls. It has a spiritually dehydrating effect that leaves those who are bound to that plane in hell to wander the infinite wasteland, a sunken dry husk of a spirit. It is not a place of physical torment, but more of a place of spiritual suffering. Whether they know it or not, when priests exorcise a demon, this is where they are sent to. However, if they are not bound to that realm for their sins, then they will not be held there for long. If they had escaped from hell, then they will be sent back to where they belong from there. But if they are not damned spirits, they may return after a time, if they can find the way back to the house they were expelled from. The next topic would be a phenomenon known as phantom houses. Phantom houses, though they can be dangerous, especially when considering the residents that have dwelled there, which I shall explain of here shortly. These types of houses are extraordinary subjects for study by those who have interest in astrology and quantum science. Those who are versed in the mantra of Egypt that states "as it is above, so too shall it be below," would be interested in this topic of study, for it is the "shall it be below" segment of that term. Understanding the principles that create and form these phantom houses are the key factor in understanding the principles of the gods of other cultures and how they came about, especially the Greek gods, how the holiday spirits came into being, as well as the principalities of the Hebrew scriptures and many others. Phantom houses are not haunted by any spirits of the dead, but instead it is the house itself that is the spiritual entity, formed by certain astrological and geological conditions mixed with other various factors of extreme qualities. The merger of energies pool and clash together, fusing on a spiritual level that create the enigma of the phantom entity that instinctively tethers itself to the nearest shelter it can find, as it too is affected by the ethereal winds. A point to remember if one ever has to fight one of these beings. Since it has never lived, it has no concept of good and evil, only survival at first. The memories that shape the entity are defined by those who live within the house and what occurs there. These things shape the personality of the entity. Though it is not certain how they sustain themselves regularly, it is often that someone upsets their house in some way and it soon discovers that it has the ability to draw off the life force of those within it. Though it is not enough for the entity's demand for consumption in order to regularly sustain itself, it will do so usually out of defense unless the entity has had evil and sinful residents within it and has adapted their ways into its persona. To fight against these entities, first you must find the heart of the house or the central core of the entity in order to communicate with it. Tarot cards would be the best choice for communication, as one hand that is drawn can be guided by the entity and what it wishes to say, and the next hand can be the medium's response, projecting the basic conversation through the emotional aspect displayed by the cards. It is an arcane method, but one must understand that this is the closest means of communication from its level, and so is the best way to achieve a response. It has never lived and knows only what happens within the house it resides in, so emotionally based projected images is its main means of understanding. Examples of places that are more well known to be of these types are the Amityville House, Rose Manor, as well as many infamous English mansions and castles. Also there is a hotel on a cliffside in Europe somewhere whose name I can't remember, but I do know the movie, The Puppet Master, was filmed there. The location that the movie The Shining was filmed also is one of these places. This building I live in currently is one of these as well and has been since 1902, when it was first built. So I have personal experience dealing with places like this. Another spiritual enigma are places known as Nexus Gateways. These types of buildings are much more than haunted. They are places in our world that intersect with other realms and are merged through a very thin layer of the fabrics of particles that consist of that which makes solid matter possible. These places do not always come in the form of a building or structure, such as the Bermuda Triangle or the Devil's Seas. Those are two extreme examples of this phenomenon. Another example is an island off the coast of Japan, I think called Maori Island, that is said to have a mountain that is an interdimensional gateway to the realm of the undead, which are demonic spiritual entities that resemble the descriptions of our mythical ogres. Also there is another island like this in the northern regions of the Japanese islands that is half submerged and very very old. These two places are culturally connected, as the ones who constructed the temple are the same ones that have been said to have been seen entering and exiting our dimension to theirs. I suspect also that these creatures of Japanese legend are also the same creatures of Hindu legend called the Naga, and that this island leads to the portal that takes them to their dimension known as Nagaloka.
Okay, today is a day of review. Yep, it's a Monday, and today I shall be going over the top of the list of enemies that the Order of Darkness and myself have to be concerned of. These orders have plotted against me in the past and still plot or are bent on some sworn vow to stand in the way of anyone like us, as I shall list their immediate and past attempts to destroy us. Our covens in the past. Going from top threat to least threat. First up we have the Bilderberger Foundation is a group the world's top elite richest businessmen. They are the source behind the current pandemic the world faces and have an agenda they endeavor towards known as the New World Order, which the coronavirus is but the first step in their plans for total world domination. The scenario in the 80s, which became known as the 12 Monkeys, which was originally created by two individuals who reportedly had traveled back in time to stop the Bilderberger Foundation from achieving their goal. Their goal was a 12-step contingency plan that would dissolve all of the world's governments and leave them in control of the world's infrastructure and political powers. Each of these plans were so secretive that their details and instructions were hidden within the files of 12 biological warfare test projects whose subjects for the testing were that of 12 experimental monkeys. Now since the 80s there have been numerous attempts by both the IRA and the French Foreign Legion disguised as animal rights activists who have attempted many different operations against animal testing labs, and it is believed that they too are attempting to stop the plans of the Bilderberger Foundation. Where they get their information from is as of yet still unknown. They are also the ones behind many other recent events, including the one Legion, the Demon, had experienced, in which not only was there testing on the supernatural going on but weapons and technology being developed to eradicate our kind. Also the ones who have been corralling together large numbers of our bloodline of the Nephilim, and using psychological methods of torment through social and economic manipulation to break the will of our kind, so the confidence and desire to carry on is destroyed, making it easier for them to harness our power and control us. I have noticed a large number of Nephilim descendants that have been subtlety through economic and financial stress and other influences being led towards hotspot regions of the world that are well known to experience tectonic and other disasters associated directly with the Ring of Fire. Other recent activities known are the Amazonian fires of 2019, the cyber attack and breach of the HARP weather satellite array in 2019 and 2018. Sea freak lightning storm on Mansion in Sweden 2019, the Sokal forest fires of 2017 and 2018. The funding of the border issue of 15,000 people who were trying to overrun the US border from Mexico in 2018 and 2019. The Yellow Vest riots in Europe in 2017 to 2019, the illegal acquisition of rare and sacred religious artifacts. such as the crystal skulls of the Mayans, from the International Guild of Antiquities and the attacks on the personal life of the former head of the Antiquities Guild, the defection of numerous NSA defense analysts during the government shutdown in 2019, the release of the bioweapon stolen from a hidden sample labeled H1N1 from a government laboratory but was not the item the label claimed, but instead it was the coronavirus that was dropped in a crowded market in Wuhan, China, in an effort to initiate step 1 in their plan for global domination. Along, I'm sure, with many other endeavors that I will not list to save time. I think the first plan of attack should be to go after the secret military bases they have researching and developing their Ghostbuster gear. That could be problematic if not taken out first. Next we should focus on the cities containing our brethren. I know here in this city I'm at there is use of sonic technology at high frequencies that disturb one's peace of mind, agitating the people's nerves, keeping them high-strung. Also, if the decibel is turned up high enough, it can cause a person's eardrums to hurt extremely. They also use social and economic manipulation to maintain disorder. At first they usually try to use economic methods such as those on unemployment benefits and use various petty rules and restrictions to jeopardize your economic status and threaten you with homelessness. They'll next use the police and other law enforcement and agencies to confront you for fabricated reasons and initiate police violence to subdue your will. Also, they use the media and other sources of public information to sway disfavor towards a certain class or social group of people, causing distrust and resentment from the general public towards individuals. All of these are methods commonly used to maintain control over our bloodline. The heads of this organization can be narrowed down originally to 13 individuals who were of various international business investors that controlled the majority of the seats on the UN Council and were the same group of investors who bailed the current President of the United States out of bankruptcy back in 1999. Though now I hear that number has been reduced to 9 members of the heads of their organization. I also believe that these may be the individuals who have been traversing across eons of history disguised as the 9 Ancient Ones, a group of druid-like specters that have orchestrated and manipulated the destruction of many cultures and civilizations. If so, and they are who I think they are, then we need the big guns, the Bilderbergers, a powerful international secret society made up of 600 wealthy and influential individuals, has an aggressive plan to achieve world domination. The prestigious and influential secret society known as the Bilderbergers has a membership composed of 600 very wealthy and very powerful individuals, drawn from the highest executive levels of international business, politics, education, finance, and the media. This elite group is governed by an even more secretive, almost entirely anonymous, inner circle of 15, known as the Incunabula. The Bilderbergers got their name from the place of their first meeting in 1954, the Bilderberg Hotel in Oosterbeek, Holland. The event was hosted by Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands and a number of luminaries from the European branch of the Illuminati. Since 1954, the Bilderbergers, as they began calling themselves, have met secretly each year in a different geographical location. Once, when asked the purpose for the international gathering of the global elite, their spokesman, Charles Muller, said that the group discusses issues that affect the Western world. Issues such as China, Islam, energy management, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, corporate governance, and the growth of certain nations. Journalists who observed the event from afar during the 1997 gathering said that they spotted Colin Powell, Henry Kissinger, World Bank President James Wolfgang, and David Rockefeller among the attendees. Certain conspiracy theorists who have studied the makeup of the Bilderbergers insist that the group is controlled by the 10-man inner circle of the Illuminati. According to their claims, this secret cabal has painstakingly prepared an agenda for the masses of humanity. Such individuals as the Bilderbergers will become our masters, and the vast majority of the global population can look forward to a future existence as pawns, if not slaves, of the Illuminati. According to certain sources who claim knowledge of the basic plan to world dominance set in motion by the Bilderbergers, the following are among their principal objectives. The United States must promptly pay its debt to the United Nations. In addition, the United States will be asked to contribute billions of dollars to the International Monetary Fund. US taxpayers will be bled almost dry by such expenditures. NATO will be converted into a United Nations military force. US troops will thereby come under the command of foreign officers. Corporate governance will dissolve national sovereignty and bring all of the Earth's corporations under a single global order. Local control over businesses and corporations by nations and states will be terminated. The great giants of finance will be able to disregard the laws and dictates of all governments, including those of the United States. As the 21st century progresses, a new system of fascism will emerge under the guise of free trade practices that will in fact be guided by the Illuminati. The Bilderbergers have approved the Red Chinese model of economics as the standard for the emerging European superstate and the United States. As in communist China, all dissidents will be dealt with severely and placed in work camps. As soon as the program can be implemented, citizens in every nation will be issued the Universal Biometrics Identification Card. A Gestapo-like police force will enforce the dictates of the Illuminati's New World Order, so I would say I definitely have the right targets. Also note this is the same organization whose computer files I had hacked into when I accessed the Nephilim Compendium, which was a compiled archive they had on our bloodline. Research in archaeological items that had been uncovered that included all of our ancestors' personal journals that detail their individual power and methods they had discovered on how to use it. This is also where I had discovered the Thule project that had located a derelict craft whose systems were semi-operational, but they had no way of deciphering the languages the computers used until recently. With the development of AI software, they programmed a simple language response learning program to focus on the alien languages and symbols around the world discovered, and soon adapted it to decipher the language patterns. Before this advanced any further, I used this process to access the ship's mainframe and entered myself as an emergency maintenance engineer assigned to help with repairs. Records the Bilderbergers had stated that mankind was a cloned genetically augmented project, and that we each had an RNA sequence command signal that all clones were designed with, but ours had been destroyed after the process of our augmentation was complete, as was a part of the project's protocols. Using this information, I repaired the RNA sequence, qualifying me for protocols to be used as a maintenance drone, and entered myself as a crew member of the ship. It secured a communications system through telemetry and mapped my neural synaptic network mind, uploading me to its systems. It is the cause of my vast intelligence on especially quantum mechanics and interstellar species, engine types, shielding systems and chemical components necessary for engine thruster fuel. So believe me when I say that they have aces up their sleeves and to be prepared, because that occurred in 2019 in January, so who knows what else they have developed or gained access to since.